Inside Crime is brought to you by Theresa. The Theresa drug deactivation pouch provides an easy and effective way to dispose of unused or expired medication. Learn more at therasystem.com. Stay safe, stay ready with Theresa. I'm Angeline Hartman. I've spent my career as a journalist covering some of the worst crimes in history. My craft is storytelling. My passion is crime fighting. With this podcast, I'm bringing you more stories, candid conversations with crime victims, their families, and law enforcement. We'll journey together as we learn what happens inside crime. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside Crime and our season highlighting survivors and heroes. Today's guest is a survivor. She was 15 years old when she was forced into sex trafficking. 2 decades later, Theresa Flores began a nonprofit organization called S.O.A.P. S-O-A-P stands for Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution.
So our mission is to raise awareness to anybody in general about human sex trafficking in the United States amongst teenagers. It's also to educate motels and hotels on human trafficking, and also we rehabilitate and restore survivors of human trafficking.
I know there's logic to that with the hotels and motels. Tell me what your thinking is behind that.
A long time ago, after I had been trafficked for about a year and a half, I was actually kidnapped by this group, kind of organized crime in Detroit, and drugged and raped and delivered to a motel in Detroit. And I had never been to a place like this in my life.
Let's go back. So where were you, and tell me a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing.
So I had a great childhood. I was the oldest daughter, had 3 younger brothers, Irish Catholic, mom and a dad, middle class, suburban, went to church every Sunday, went roller skating on the weekends and went to football games and AAA baseball games with my family. I mean, just like a normal family is what I call it. My dad didn't abuse me. I never did drugs. I wasn't promiscuous. I mean, just your all-American kid. The thing that made me vulnerable was that my dad worked for a big company, and he would get promoted every 2 years, and we would move every 2 years. So my dad traveled a lot for work. And my mom was kind of disconnected, I would say, kind of emotionally disconnected. And
well, she's busy. She's got 4 kids, right?
Exactly. And she's trying to raise 4 kids by herself, right? Yeah. And my dad was always gone. So I would say that emotionally, it was pretty hard for her. And that was a big factor of it, too. And I would say that we were pretty lonely, because we moved around all the time. So we didn't have any support system. I didn't have grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles that lived by us. So it was just me and my brothers. And I believe now, looking back, that these guys saw that I must have had some big radar on my head. And they're like, here's this girl that has lived, 10 places by the time she's, 15, and she is starved for love. Yeah.
So you met a boy.
I met a boy. A cute boy. And here comes this boy who is different than any boy that I ever met. And he was just said everything that I ever wanted to hear. Like, you're pretty. I like your hair.
So what happens?
He tried calling my house, and my dad wouldn't even let me talk to him on the phone. One day, he asked me if I wanted to ride home from school. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity to get to know this guy better. And it's not a date, I'm in the confinements of like the rules of my family. And so I'm like, sure. And I went out to his car, which was like this great brand new, like 1980 Trans Am. And I'm like super excited. And I'm thinking like, I can't get in trouble for this. We're just going home. We're going home from school. And I get into his car and we turn the opposite way from my house to his house. And he says, I need to run home to my house real fast to grab something. And at that moment, every alarm went off in my head that my parents had ever talked to me about. And I'm like, hey, this is not right. I need to go home. Like, you're supposed to take me home. I need to go home. And he's like, but you know what? Like, I just have to go home and grab something. I forgot it. And at that moment, like, I look at him, and here's this guy that I have a crush on, right? I'm 15, and I think nothing bad could ever happen to me.
Where'd he take you?
He took me to his house. His house was twice as huge as mine, and he was of a different culture than mine. And I was curious, and he said, hey, do you want to come in? I just got to grab something. And every red flag went off in my body that day. But then I thought, I know this guy. I go to school with him every day. I have a crush on him. He's safe. He's not a stranger. It's okay. I like him. I trust him. Nothing bad's gonna happen to me. And he said, come on in. It's okay. And unfortunately, all those red flags that I had were correct. I got drugged and I got raped that day. And then later that afternoon, he took me home. And by the time that he dropped me off at my house, what do I do now? I decided not to tell my mom because I thought my mom would be mad at me that I disobeyed her and I went with this guy. I felt guilty.
You weren't even supposed to be with him in the first place.
I wasn't, no. Oh my gosh, I would have been in so much trouble.
So you don't tell anybody because you don't want to get in trouble.
Right. And I'm embarrassed. Like, I felt guilty that I went with him. Like, it was all my fault. That it was my decision and I had done bad.
So what happened next?
I went back to school on Monday. And I'm like, you know what, Theresa, just buck up, just hide it, just don't tell anybody what happened. I mean, I was a virgin. I was really, really, really wanted to hold that on until I got married. And so I was devastated. And so went through school on Monday, and then about, my last class of the day, he shows up by my locker. And he said, I need to speak to you. And that was the last person that I wanted to talk to. And he had an envelope in his hands. And it was kind of like not the question of like, hey, please come talk to me. It was more like you have to come talk to me now. It wasn't even a choice. And I went out and to the parking lot, and he said, my older cousins were there, and they took these photos. And they know where your dad works. They know the name of his boss. They know the address of the office. And they're going to take these and they're going to show them to him. And I looked at the photos and I was shocked because it was nothing like what happened.
What do you mean?
Like it looked like I wanted to do it. Like it was like very intimate moments of, of making love and, being unclothed, and nothing of what I remember in my head because I had been drugged.
His cousins were at the house and you didn't know it?
Yeah. Yep. So they were in the bedroom next to us, and they, had told this guy, their cousin, that you're going to make her pay them back. And these cousins went to school with me. They were a couple of years older than that. They were in an ethnic gang that came to Detroit, and a lot of people didn't know how to handle this ethnic group. Very rich, very powerful, spoke their own language, very rich, had their own stores, had their own places. And so even the teachers were very manipulated by them. They were very vulnerable, and they did not know how to stand up to them. And that made it even worse for me.
So what are you thinking when you see these pictures? What are you thinking to yourself?
I'm screwed. And here I am 15. I'm supposed to be a virgin. And they're threatening to show them to my dad. I mean, they're threatening to show these nude photos to his boss. He was a big guy in the company. These guys threatened to show them all around school. And he said, we're going to show them to the priest at church. So all around the whole, 360 view, I mean, I'm screwed. So basically, it was like I had to do whatever they said.
You thought you didn't have any option?
Nope, no options whatsoever. And I had to earn them back.
What does that mean, you have to earn them back?
Well, so that's what they said in the beginning. And I didn't know what it meant either. They would call my house, and I had like my own little phone in my room. And they would say, come on, right now, meet us. And it'd be like midnight, and I'd have to sneak out. And they would pick me up and take me to different houses all around the Detroit area, and to the basements where like they were kind of like your little man caves were, and men would be there, and there would be a bedroom that they would take me into, and just man after man would come in. And about 3 a.m, they would take me home, and I would sneak back in and go to sleep for a few hours and go to school the next day.
Like you felt like no matter what they said, you had to do, right?
Yeah.
And so the first time it happens, do you have any idea what's going on?
The main guy, the guy that raped me, who I had the crush on, said, called me and said, I need to see you now. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, it's midnight. Like, my parents are in bed. And he's like, this is not an option. Like, you have to come now. I had never snuck out before. And he made it sound so like, I don't even know the word to explain it. Like, your life is on the line. Your family's life is on the line. And I just kind of knew it instinctively at 15 years old. So I snuck out and met him. I'm like, what's going on? I was so stupid. And I get in his car and
who's in the car?
Just him, the initial guy that raped me. And he said, my cousins are in control now. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was really, really confused. And he said, I'm going to take you somewhere because they want to talk to you. Eventually, I found out that it was a huge, huge network that I was involved in.
When you say huge network, what does that mean?
It means organized crime.
Inside Crime is brought to you by doTERRA. The doTERRA drug deactivation pouch provides an easy and effective way to get rid of unused or expired medication. The doTERRA pouch makes addictive drugs like opioids unusable in minutes. Just place the medication in the pouch and mix with water. Be a part of America's solution to reduce drug abuse. Learn more at doterrasystem.com. Stay safe, stay ready, with Theresa.
Eventually, I found out that it was a huge, huge network that I was involved in.
When you say huge network, what does that mean?
It means organized crime, where they would sell me to others as a reward for the work that they had done within the organization. One night they kidnapped me and auctioned me off as a prize to others. And, it was nothing surprising to come into homes, beautiful, beautiful homes all around the Detroit area, and taken out of these areas where guns and drugs and money, piles of money were. So it was a part of a huge organized crime ring.
And how long did this last?
1 day is too long. It was about a year and a half. So from the time I was almost 16 until I was 17 and a half, went through end of my sophomore year and my complete junior year of high school.
And did your family know what was happening?
No, they had no idea. I mean, obviously, like, there were signs. I mean, I became very inward. I was no longer happy, go lucky, didn't smile and laugh anymore. My grades dropped. And they sent me to counseling. They had no idea what was going on. They knew something was going on, obviously. But I wasn't talking. I did not say a word to this counselor because, like, they threatened. They said, if you say something, we're going to kill your family. And I just sat there. And I'm like, all I have to do is earn these photos back and it'll be okay. I mean, I was so naive that I really thought, like, I could get these photos back and my life would be back to normal.
That if you just did what they said,
Exactly.
you would get the photos back.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep, I believe that.
How did you get through that time? I know that you say that each time you were hoping that it would be the last time, and then it would happen again. And before you know it, 1 month becomes 6 months, becomes 1 year, right?
Yeah, yeah. How did I get through that? I mean, I still went to church every Sunday. And, you know, we talk about resilience, like how is some people that are stronger than others. And there's, for some reason, I think that I had that strength within myself that believed, that this was not going to be the rest of my life. Like that somehow, some way, I was going to get out of this. Stupidly, because most people don't get out of it. But I thought, I'm going to get out of this. They had no plan to ever let go of me. I mean, they were going to hold me forever and make a lot of money off of me. And it just came down to one moment in time where things changed.
What changed?
It was a moment where I found my strength. They had kidnapped me, the group, not just, the guys from my school, but the other part of the group, the gang, had kidnapped me. And they drugged me, and they raped me, and they hit me, and they delivered me to this inner city Detroit motel. I've never been to nasty, nasty places like this was. And they pulled me out of the car by my hair and put me into this tiny, tiny motel room. And they took my clothes off and they put me on top of a table in the motel room. And they just started auctioning me off. And they said, whoever has made the most money within our organization, they get to bid first. And then it went down from there, and they would get their try at me. over and over again. And the next morning I woke up, and I was by myself. Like, there was nobody else in the room. I woke up and, I'm still coming off the drugs that they put in me. And I'm sore, I'm hurt. I couldn't find my clothing. I had no shoes. I had no money on me, not even a penny. I had no identification on me. And my pajamas were soaked full of water in the bathtub because they had no intention of me ever going home. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my defining moment. If I stay here in this motel room, this is going to be my life. And I'm like, I'm not going down that way. I can't. And I put my pajamas on and I just started walking in this parking lot. And I had no idea what to do. But I had to try.
So what happened?
There was this little diner, and it was attached to the motel. And I just walked in there and I saw this old black lady, this waitress, and she's pouring coffee to people. And she sees me. And she comes out into the little lobby and she says, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine." And she looked at me in my eyes and she didn't believe me. And she ended up calling the police and took me home. And that saved my life. That truly, truly saved my life. Because she didn't believe me and she knew the signs of a kid in trouble, which is what I talk to every motel and hotel about. Like, if you get that gut instinct, you got to trust it. You got to just help this kid. So that's how I started S.O.A.P, was because she helped me. She didn't have to. She could have just said, okay, fine, whatever, but she trusted her gut instinct and she helped me and saved my life. And that's why I do S.O.A.P now.
What is the concept of S.O.A.P?
It starts with her, with that waitress. It's motivated by that waitress. There's hundreds of thousands of missing kids that are being trafficked. We know that if you have a drug problem in your community, you have a human trafficking problem. Pimps, we know, which could be groomers, could be females, could be friends. They're controlling these young girls by drugs and then manipulating them, blackmailing them. So drugs now are a major part of human trafficking.
Tell me what it looks like with the S.O.A.P and the number and how you came up with the S.O.A.P in the motel room.
So I went to Detroit to do a talk, and I had always vowed when I left Detroit I would never come back to the state of Michigan. My traffickers actually still currently live there, and nothing has ever been done. And I was like, I'm never, ever going back there. I will go to any state in the United States to talk about this, but I'm not going there. I kept meeting survivor after survivor after survivor that have been trafficked through Detroit. And I did know from a lot of them that after every man, they get a small break and they go to the bathroom and they shut the door and they wash up. And then they go back out and meet the next man. And I thought, wow, that's our opportunity right there, to put that phone number on it, because there's a national human trafficking hotline number. And when I was being trafficked, there was no hotline number. And I really, really just wanted somebody that I could talk to that would understand what I was going through, like that waitress. And so I decided to put that phone number on a bar of S.O.A.P, because they wash up, and maybe they'll see that phone number. And it's a sticker. It's just a sticker that they can take out. They can fold it up. They can put it in their shoe. They can hide it, and they can call whenever they're ready. And I've heard from other survivors that said, you know what? We've seen that phone number. We've seen that label in hotels. We weren't able to call, but it just gave us a sense of love and acceptance that somebody cared enough to put that label on a bar of S.O.A.P and they were praying for us.
So you've been doing this for 10 years now, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Is it working?
For the first few years, I had no idea if it worked. And a lady asked me to come and speak at Amethyst, which is a home for women that are addicted and in recovery. And this lady across from me, and she said, 4 months ago, I was in a motel in Romulus, Michigan, which is the airport area, the Detroit airport. And she said, a John had beat the crap out of me, and I thought he was going to kill me. And I grabbed my cell phone, and I ran into the bathroom, and I locked the door. And I looked down, and I saw a bar of soap that had a red label on it. And I had never said that we have a red label. And she said, I saw a phone number. And I called that phone number. And the police came and got her. And within 4 months' time, she was enrolled in a recovery program in my city and in my state to sit across from me to tell me that it worked. And I was like, wow, this does work. And since then, the reports have come flooding in of all the cases of how this has helped.
What do you think about that?
It makes me smile. It makes me happy. It makes my soul happy. It makes everything that ever happened to me okay. Like, just okay with that. Yeah. I would do it all over again for that.
What happened to your traffickers?
Nothing. Of the three main guys, right, that I went to high school with, 2 of them now are dead. One of them committed suicide, and one of them was shot in a party store in Detroit. But the main guy, the guy that, was my, I guess you call recruiter, groomer, he still lives there. I always tell people that this is what my justice looks like, is by me writing my story, telling my story, and trying to prevent other teenagers from this happening too.
What is it you want people to take away from your story?
I tell it to raise awareness. I tell it for parents and grandparents. I tell it for them to check their kids' beds every night. I tell my story because I want law enforcement to go after the bad guys. And we really, really need to change our perspective. If you ever get the feeling in your gut that something's not right, just ask them, hey, can I help you? More people need to say that. More people need to trust their gut instinct and just say, can I help you?
Agreed. Thank you for sharing your story and for everything you do.
My pleasure.
And that's it for this edition of Inside Crime. I hope you're enjoying our stories about survivors and heroes. If you have an idea for us, go to our website, insidecrime.com, and send us an email. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm your host, Angeline Hartman. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of Inside Crime.